Hello, I'd like to talk to you about genre today, specifically the genre of the book Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. The definition of genre is a category of artistic, musical, and literary composition characterized by a particular style, form, or content. The novel Jane Eyre can be classified by many genres, including Victorian, Romantic, Gothic, and Realism. When I read Jane Eyre for my AP Literature class last year, we spent several weeks talking about the genre within the book, and in the end, we wrote a paper over it. Most of the evidence for my claims throughout this video will be coming from the paper I wrote. In a Victorian novel, characters struggle throughout the story to attain their morality. Most of the time, it takes place in the middle class, and they improve their nature. Usually, these stories have a relatively happy ending. Jane Eyre contained many elements of Victorianism. Here are some examples. As a child, Jane Eyre struggled to be a moral person and always thought in a logical manner. An example for this struggling morality can be found in a quote Jane makes to her aunt before leaving her. "I will never come to see you when I am grown up, and if anyone asks how I liked you and how you treated me, I will say that the very thought of you makes me sick, and that you treated me with miserable cruelty." We also see this moral struggle in Edward Rochester throughout the book. He is forever fighting to right his past and receive forgiveness. "I began to see and acknowledge the hand of God in my doom. I began to experience remorse, repentance, the wish for reconcilement to my Maker. I began sometimes to pray, very brief prayers they were, but very sincere. And in the end, he wins out. My Edward and I then are happy, and the more so because those we love most are happy likewise," Jane said. We said that Jane Eyre also held some elements of romanticism. Let's check that out. A romantic novel focuses on a central love story between two people struggling to make their relationship work. In addition, romantic novels must have an emotionally satisfying and optimistic ending. Jane and Rochester's relationship went back and forth throughout the entire book and suffered on huge struggles. It simply consists in the existence of a previous marriage. Mr. Rochester has a wife now living. In the end, Jane and Rochester put their differences aside, and the book truly has an emotionally satisfying and optimistic ending. "I have now been married 10 years. I know what it is to live entirely for and with what I love best on earth. I hold myself supremely blessed beyond what language can express, because I am my husband's life as fully as he is mine." Now let's talk about the Gothic elements of Jane Eyre. Gothic literature is a genre known for combining fiction, horror, and romanticism. Elements such as spookiness and paranormal activity are found in the Gothic genre. The biggest Gothic element in the book was Rochester's awful wife, Bertha Mason. What it was, whether beast or human being, one could not, at first sight, tell. It groveled, seemingly on all fours. It snatched and growled like some strange wild animal. But it was covered in clothing, and a quantity of dark grizzled hair, wide as a mane, hid its head and face. Creepy. Gothic fiction is also defined as a female protagonist's entrapment and struggle to free herself from a male-controlled authority. Jane experiences this many times in the book. Rochester shows his control by attempting to win Jane over with riches. "I will attire my Jane in satin and lace. She shall have roses in her hair, and I will cover the head I love best with a priceless veil." When Jane finds herself in a relationship with St. John, he also expresses authority over her. "A missionary's wife you shall be. You shall be mine. I claim you, not for my pleasure, but for my sovereign's service." Last but not least, let's discuss the elements of realism in Jane Eyre. Realism focuses on recreating average everyday life in literature and goes against any idealistic, prejudiced, and romantic elements. A realistic element we see in Jane Eyre is the use of the name John for at least 5 of the characters' names. How many Johns do you know? I know quite a few too. Another element of realism that we find is Jane's curiosity as a child. The first day she met her best friend Helen, Jane asked so many questions that the girl had to tell her to go away. Jane was also a real child in the aspect that she was innocent to the true meaning of sickness and death. It was not until she found out Helen was dying that she realized how severe and real death is. Now we know that the novel Jane Eyre can be classified by 4 genres, and maybe even more. There are many other examples of analyzations that we can make about this complex novel. I hope I have intrigued you during this exercise today to realize the complexity and beauty of novels like the beloved Jane Eyre. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.